Alright, this is going to start your pod review for Ioparith. I'm probably butchering your name. I apologize. That's the best I got. You played a Taliyah game. I have the details right here on op.gg. And we're just going to get right into it. Starting with your runes, this is the quickest thing to address. I think you need to stop running Phase Rush. It looks like you're using it and you're having success with it, but you're also losing with it as well. The big reason why I think it's easy for me to suggest this as a quick fix is when we switch to pro builds and we see what high level players are building, basically anybody who plays Taliyah, I don't see a single Phase Rush pick here. There's actually not a single one. We can keep scrolling all day long. I think Aerie is so overwhelmingly dominant and better that you need to start using it, and within your first few games I think you're just going to find that it's better. It makes long trades better, it makes short trades better. Overall you're just going to be more relevant. It makes auto attacks better, etc. As for your secondary tree, there are still some people who use precision in here. You see it a couple times. But one, never take cut down. You need coup de grace. I think this might have been an accident, but presence of mind is the one you would always take. But as for the best runes that I think you should be taking from now on, everybody runs minion dematerializer magical footwear. The reason for this is that you want to rush your CDR item, and by the time you maybe have the gold to finish it, if you pick up some kills, you can also finish your boots at the same time. So that's a huge power spike generally before level 11 or at level 11. So that really synergizes well with this. The reason people take minion dematerializer is because this allows you to zap cannon minions early, which is going to make your pushing and your ability to get early more favorable back timers that much more easy, and you're never going to miss a cannon minion in the first 10 minutes of the game again. You can also choose to use this a couple times on the melees and casters just to get that extra percentage damage, so your wave clear in the mid game is going to be better. Overall, these are just incredibly good on Taliyah overall. The second reason why magical footwear is really good on her is that because of the passive movement speed Taliyah gets on worked ground, and because of her Stoneweaver passive, she doesn't need boots as much as other mages do to get back to lane or to roam to another lane, because she also has her ultimate, which is another source of mobility. She doesn't need boots as much as other carries. She can afford to wait until 9 or 10 minutes when these kick in. The other reason why I think you should actually stop going precision is because when you go precision secondary, go back up here. When you go precision secondary, your bonus goes from like 25 AP to 10 AP and 9 attack speed. And overall, that attack speed is going to be a lot less helpful than 15 AP and summon Aerie. With this Phase Rush precision build that you continue to go, you're denying yourself 15 more AP and the additional damage from Aerie, which early game is going to be doing anywhere from like 15 to 20 damage in lane trades. Double if you get double procs of Aerie. Add 15 AP to that and you're going to start seeing anywhere from like 20 to 50 to 80 damage in short to long trades. So from here on, I think if you try that in a couple games, you're definitely going to see the benefit there. I think that's going to cover it on the runes. Your build this game is more situational. The only thing that irks me is that I see this magic mantle. You bought it at 4 minutes and it just sat in your inventory all game. So this buy in particular, 4 minutes, we're going to look at what you could have gotten. What I do think is funny though is that you go from 4 minutes to 5 minutes and then you just buy this thing whole. So something good really happened. So, but we're going to get right into the video because we're already taking too long. Alright, and we hit play. As for tips in the Swain matchup, this is where we're just going to run out the time nice and slow, and I can go over this. Swain in general, if you're playing against him as Taliyah, you outrange him a lot. The only ability of his that really competes with your range, as long as you are staying at range from him, is his E. His snare can get you whenever you move in close enough to land your W or your E. But if you're staying at max range with your Q, his E is actually not going to hit you, as long as you don't walk into it. So generally, Tips for playing against Swain is to just outrange him and dodge the snare. That's the easy answer. The other answer is a lot of lateral movement. A lot of times with Taliyah, you don't want to wave clear the lane straight on. You have to get off to the side and throw your Qs, whereas he kind of has to Q straight at the wave to penetrate and get the minion kills. Whenever his Q ray kills a minion, it goes through it and hits the next one. So he tends to wave clear in a straight line, whereas Taliyah naturally wants to wave clear from the side with an angle. So if you wave clear from the side at an angle, at your maximum Q range, you're going to find the Swain simply cannot get close to you, basically ever, as long as you respect his E snare. I think that's kind of the most I can tell you in terms of dealing with him in laning phase, because after 6, you shouldn't really be trying to all-in him ever, because of his ultimate. Unless your all-in is just better than his and he's chunked, you don't want to fight him all-in anymore. Taliyah's ult strength lies in the fact that she roams with it. It's not a source of damage in a fight, it's a source of terrain, disruption, or getting you somewhere else. It's not a combat ultimate like Swain, who turns into, a giant demon and kills people. So after 6, less fighting him head on, more looking for opportunities to help your team elsewhere, while he's still trying to wave clear and scale up. I need a quick drink of water. Where's my water bottle's dry? Whatever, we're winging it. Okay, so we're just gonna roll through laning phase here. Actually, we're gonna pause one more time. I want to bring up your deaths before we get into it. Looking back at the heat map on op.gg and seeing where and when your deaths were, they were all around the mid lane. Like if I do a quick circle right here, this is where all of your deaths occurred. So we're gonna want to look more over the course of the video how to stay more safe around your own lane, which is where the hotspot tends to be between 8 to 15 minutes, where people start leaving their own lanes and they just come mid, because mid is the cool place to be. As for the other things that you wanted to look for in particular was your thinking, mindset, and game plan. That all is going to come into picture by the end of the video. Most of it is just push and roam, push and get an objective, push and dive someone in another lane, push and get river vision, push and invade. Generally, Taliyah's wave clear and mobility are her strengths. So by pushing, you put the enemy on the back foot, having to clear the minions in response. Then you use your superior mobility to create a 4v3 or a 3v2 or a 2v1 somewhere else on the map, because your mobility allows you to do that. But pushing them in and wave clearing them first tends to be a priority. Alright, I think that's good. We're just going to keep going. Now, I've actually not watched your individual gameplay, I only checked out the deaths. So I'm going in pretty blind here on your laning phase. But we're going to run it at double speed, or else this will take forever. Push and you ward immediately. Actually, there's one more thing to point out here. This Lee Sin wasn't here yet. I don't know if he was actually AFK this entire game. Actually, no, he wasn't. He kills you later on. But the important thing to note here is that this Lee Sin has inspiration. When you see this, you should definitely know that he's not going to be nearly as scary as he should be with Electrocute. The fact that he gets off to a late start just makes him even weaker. But this should be a red flag in your head that says, if there's a 2v2 that pops off, since I have heal and Swain has teleport, and Lee Sin basically doesn't have a real keystone, if there's ever a 2v2 or even a 1v2, you're going to have the upper hand in summoners and in keystone. So just keep that in mind. I think your general game plan here would definitely be to just farm until you get tier, or farm until you get lost chapter. If he makes enough mistakes, you might be able to kill him early, but early trades like this are very dangerous. But we're going to see if you end up getting the early kill or not. It's good that you're drinking your health potions. He's not drinking his right now. This is where you would be setting up a level 3 trade. You would try to hit level 3 before him right here and then go in. It's worth pausing here for when you know you're trying to work for this level 3 all-in, because you've already poked him down so much. He only has 350 health. That's pretty doable. You could probably force his flash with a good all-in. Well, actually, He doesn't have flash because of the invade early. Because this would actually let you play more aggressively, right? So you know that if you can set up something cute at level 3 or level 4, you can all-in him and kill him. The fact that you're still standing on your worked ground here is going to take away from the power of your all-in drastically. Hugely, especially because you're not running Airy and you're missing out on that kind of damage. So the fact that you're choosing to stand on your worked ground here and you don't have a combat keystone that does damage, your all-in is very weak here. Especially because you also don't have your shove. When you're looking for an all-in this early, you need to be off of your worked ground, and you need to be trying to land all of your abilities. You should especially be taking W here, because this guy does not have flash. If you land a good W, he's as good as dead. I don't think taking another point in Q level 3 is appropriate here. In most situations, I don't think it would be either, because if you ever get ganked, now you don't have your W to knock somebody off of you and get away. In general, there's only a few champs that ever put 2 points into a wave clear ability or a poke ability rather than their third. This is one of those cases where you should not do that. Having your W would be way more useful, especially because this guy doesn't have flash. So this trade here is just not good. It's really not good. It's not a surprise that you end up losing that. I think if you had Airy though, over the course of this laning phase, you would have definitely killed him, because look who does have Airy. Swain, but you don't. I think you really need that damage. If you're going to play aggressive early like that, don't take Phase Rush. I think there's a reason why on the pro builds, we saw that basically every single one, like 99% of them run Airy. But back to fast forwarding. Back to farming. Really just trying to get that tier or that lost chapter. If you have enough money to back for lost chapter, you get it. If you end up getting chunked out of lane early and you can get a tier, then you would get a tier here. I do not like this back at all. It ends up working out for you, obviously, because you get really fed here. I don't think it's terrible though, because you spend every bit of gold that you just bought. You knew that you could buy something that would A, let you take less damage from him in trades, and dodge his poke more, or generally be more safe. So this buy is still good because you bought a lot of raw combat stats. So that's why it's good. The reason why I overall don't like it though, I think you should have probably stayed for one more wave and got tier and a potion. That's me being coach and saying, you know, get the safe scaling item, look for your clear item spikes. But your decision to back here and get the combat items looks like it gets you fed. We're going to see how that happens. See if you could got both of them there. I really like the ulti. They both flash and you can kill them anyway. Okay, you could have definitely got them both here. Once you see both of their flashes, like, that's just awesome. That makes this even easier. You don't have vision of them here, which I think is what impacts your decision in throwing a Q the way you do. You try to, like, settle for one of them. You know you're hitting them, you don't really know who you're hitting. Okay. This is the same case with the Swain earlier in lane. In that early invade, where he did not have his flash, and he didn't have flash in laning phase, you know you can be more aggressive with your W because they can't flash it or dodge it again. If you were able to lead with the slow on your E against a target that does not have flash, it kind of guarantees your W. I think you would more or less agree with me on that one. So what you would do here, when you know that you were already chasing two very low flashless no mana targets who have nothing left to get away, instead of throwing your Q at this straight angle, which makes it easy for both of them to dodge, you wait and you chase them and you cut off their escape. Rather than running straight at them, you know because they already used their flashes, they have no way out. You easily have them cut off here. Instead of running straight at them and throwing your Q damage perpendicular to their route of escape, you cut off their route of escape completely. You run right here first. You would run right here, stop, and throw your E, which would then cover this entire area right here that I'm looking at. If you were right here, you would cut off their entire escape with your E. They would be forced to walk over it, and they would be slowed, and then you would have a much easier time getting both of these kills. You would then even be able to like shove them back further, and it's even easier here. But because you don't choose to cut off their escape first, they split up, and then it looks like one of them gets away. So when you see targets like that that are very overextended, you try to look to cut off their escape first. Now, you are a little low, so it might be a little sketchy here. You're saying like, hey, I don't want to get that close. But I think you're 100%. You could be more aggressive here with this. You're level 6 to their level 4, and once again, they didn't have mana. So I think this is actually not that scary. We're going to watch it one more time. Rather than running straight at them here, throwing this Q too early, you move here and just cover this whole area with your E. I also think, I have a ward. You couldn't ward this bush, so you take the safe route of just trying to kill one of them, but I think you could have cut off their escape path better and looked for a W. And that's the Fed we're looking at, where you go back and get a lost chapter 2 minutes later in op.gg. Very nice kill on Swain. Very nice run down the bot lane, but you could have picked up more than one kill. You could have done both. I think it's actually worth seeing if you could have pushed that lane. Kind of glossed over that. I think you're 100% correct to leave that for Xayah and just base and get back to your own lane. This is why Xayah is so good, is because early game you can just go straight to your lane much more quickly. Oh, actually. Yeah. To get back to lane faster on Taliyah, right here, you need to be hugging this more closely, and then you path along here and you keep your passive. Then right here, you keep your passive, and you move over here to this wall. Then you go from this wall straight to here. And you go from this wall along the tower wall until you finally get back to it. Now, actually, I ran it down this side. Ideally, you should go down this side because this is where your tower is. But you can do both, right? But you're kind of running straight down the lane, so you're not actually using your Taliyah passive here. You need to run down the walls to get to your lane quicker. The same way you ran down the river here to get to bot lane. You need to do that when you get to mid lane. Your first death is going to come up here. I'm going to switch to your vision. I'm pretty sure it's just a gank. Let's see how you prevent that. You do have 2 wards right now. Take a fat trade to the face. Swain does some damage. Luckily you have some magic resist. He lands another one. Connected sneaks in behind you. It's not often that you get ganked by top lane, but it does happen. And, you know, it clearly happens right here. When you're in a matchup, Renekton versus GP top, even if GP is ahead right now, regardless, he is still pushed to his turret, and Renekton still has more wave clear than Gangplank in the early game.
So the fact that Renekton is such an early game champion, you need to consider the fact that he could push and roam on you. In this case, you die to a gank when you have wards. You need to make sure you lay wards before you go aggressive in your lane and decide to start losing HP. Because once you start losing HP, this guy's like, oh man, you know, that's just what he's looking for. He sees you get low, and so, you know, he just walks down here. And by the time he gets here, it's just easy. Before you go aggressive in your lane, you need to ward first. The way you catch this gank coming, you could have seen it. Gangplank may have warded, but you could have seen this coming when he goes missing. And the fact that you're low says, I need to play safer. But you play unsafe into no. I think before you go aggressive next time, you want to take a ward and drop it right here. The reason why you drop it here instead of this bush, even though you're against the Lee Sin, one, Tracker's Knife was removed. Lee Sin can't do as many ward hops as usual. So even though most times I would say you ward this bush against the Lee Sin, you don't see Lee Sin nearly as much anymore. In general, a lot of junglers will not hop over this wall and then sit in here, you know, 15 seconds to wait for their gap closer and then gank you. That really does not happen as much anymore. So against most junglers who don't even have a way to jump over this anyway, the best wards you should be laying are mid-river or right past this wall right here. If you put it right here, you're still going to be able to see if you get roamed on from an aggressive enemy top laner, and you're still going to see this river here. Same kind of goes for this side. Bush is a great place to ward, but right here is a good place to ward as well, because you can see the jungle exit. You can see anyone that's going to come from here at all. This is the same case. Right, barely on this side, you see the entire choke, and you also see the river. If you just sit this ward here, you see a lot less by comparison. A lot less. You don't see this Renekton coming at all. So this is definitely a big warding tip that I would start doing. Lay this ahead of time before you go aggressive, because you know you're going to start fighting, you're going to start shedding blood, and the shark in the water, who is this Renekton, is going to smell it and come gank you. You start to die another few times, which I think you are hurt, you stick around without vision, and you kind of end up just getting sniped out. Your build right now is just fine. You got a little bit of tankiness because you know you're probably going to need Zhonyas and stuff this game because they have diving champions. Now okay, so you do ward sometimes, but you need to get in the habit of doing this before you get aggressive. So back to your vision. You see the play bot, 100%, they're pushed up. Easy. Definitely think your item goal here should definitely be not lost chapter, but Luden's. This is still okay though. You pushed it in before you backed, so it'll bounce back to you. Again, here with the running straight down lane, you need to use you need to be using Taliyah passive, 100%. I like to watch these fights all the way through before I go back and critique, because if you're the one who mains the champion, I've only played 2 games of Taliyah, so you're probably more comfortable in her than I am. But now that that fight's over, we're gonna go back and look at it. You see that your Zai is under tower, and we just saw that Raka was over here, which means that their team is split up, so you guys go for the lane. I think this is correct.
Listen kind of goes too deep. Swain does a lot of damage. Where did Swain use his E here? That's the question. I don't think you had to flash away there. I think you were already starting to get out of range. I think if you saw the root coming in and you had to dodge the root, then you would flash there. But you have enough HP to not be so afraid of that. That's why you bought that little bit of magic resistance. Next time, save your flash for his root. Okay, no, I don't like this. You're going back in with no HP against a Soraka who he just got done healing up her whole team. Or maybe I think she's coming from base right now. Okay, so she's coming from base, but you're still low HP. Get back. Have gold right now, but it's not enough gold to finish your Ludens, so you really don't want to base. Overall, the positioning from you was just a little greedy. I think in another universe, your team cleans that up better. But the important things to note here: you're low, Zhonya low, Taliyah's low. All of your mana bars are getting low. This is not a fight that you hang out for. By hanging out, you're also enticing your team to hang out. If you make the decision to go mid and say, let's chill out, we're low, and we don't have mana, your team follows suit. But you stick around with just enough HP to get sniped. Just for math's sake, and to see how squishy you are as a mage, this is a reminder that you're a mid laner. You do have cloth armor, which helps, but your armor is only 60. You have 300 and, we'll say you have 400 HP. Lee Q right now does 66, 220 damage, or wait, 210 damage, I'm sorry. Does 210 damage with both parts of it. And the second part does execute damage with 8% of your missing life. So if you are missing 800 HP, 10% of that, or 8% of that would be 64. So 210, 420, 480. He does 480 damage. This is without electrocute because he's still weak. He does this to you without electrocute, by the way. Just a reminder. Add in the smite, 480 physical damage and 76 true damage. So when you're a mage, I think this is just kind of a reminder to you that you're squishy and you can't afford to stick around versus people like this. They only need to land, you know, one thing and they got you. I think against another champion like maybe Kha'Zix, who isn't even 2 levels down like this Lee Sin was and has electrocute, this gets even worse. I think in another game where you're against a Kha'Zix who is not a 2-3-2 Lee Sin with inspiration and kleptomancy, but instead a Kha'Zix with warrior and a dirk, instead of just dying from 400 HP, you die from like 700 HP. So keep that in mind when you decide to stick around for early-ish fights like this when you're not tanky. Very easy to kill you if someone just gets onto you. Gotta weigh that into your decision making. And you should die immediately after. Your next death follows very soon after. You fight, you fight, you fight. You win the fight with Swain, but
Guess who's here? We can play this one more time. There's actually a moment when you saw him. I would say it probably would have been difficult to see him if you're very focused on the Swain at this point, but there was a time when you saw him here, and when that happens, you need to have been running this way. But really, realistically, he has Mobies and he just catches you and kills you. I think choosing to fight here, even though you really want this kill, the circumstances and the consequences mean you die to Lee Sin, who has Moby boots and is on the way. So I think you need to definitely be careful about your choosing to fight. When it's mid-game right here, your job as a mage is to scale up and be strong for the mid-game. Like this 13 to 22 minute time is when you're supposed to be your strongest. When you die a lot choosing to fight, rather than farm and continue to scale up, you're really hurting your ability to power spike for this mid-game, where you're supposed to be the strongest. I think lean less towards fighting and killing this guy, more towards working on your CS and getting your items. 3 CS waves is worth as much as a kill, so that's 19 CS. At this point in the game, 13 minutes and 42 seconds, I think there's been something like 155 minions total. So with your 84 CS, you've gotten a lot less than you could have. I think you've missed out on at least 60 farm here. It's usually not possible to get all the farm. There's going to be times when it's better to roam or even miss farm and look for a trade instead. So I think at this point in the game, the fact that you have 84 farm with such a fight heavy game, you should be looking to have at least, I think, 120 by this kind of game. Focus on your farm and focus on wave clearing before fighting, and I think hitting 120 farm around this time in the game is going to start feeling easy rather than ridiculous. Because if you were actually getting every CS, you could have as much as like 150 right now. So less farming, less fighting without vision, more farming to your item spikes first. It's like Sorcerer's Shoes, Ludens, and then, I don't know, Liandry's or Rylandry. When you get 2 items with Sorc Shoes, that's when you're a monster on Taliyah. You should concentrate on finishing your Ludens and your Sorcerer's Shoes, things like that, before you go all fight heavy. Looking at what happens here. I'm gonna go back. Definitely surprised to see that Lee Sin. But I think with how much he's ganked you already, you should know that if you're just roaming around the map like this, the enemy jungler that has Mobies is going to come find you. He's already found you, 3 times now. It shouldn't be a surprise that when you walk across the map with low health and no mana, that this guy's waiting for you in the next bush. Instead of pushing this wave and then pathing towards Leona, which you think is safe, don't just walk all the way through mid like this. Just take that and then go base, because it costs you your heal. You don't even have mana to fight if he was in this bush, right? You're completely helpless. When you don't have mana like this, don't be in places where it's dangerous if you were to get caught. Just be at your tower, be basing. Build is finally starting to progress. You do have more farm than the Swain still, and more XP, so you're doing a good job. This is where Swain gets his quadra kill. Look at how this fight could have been better. Where this starts off, we're also going to weigh the fact that we go to red vision. You see the Zaya's bot, and I think he just got done farming a wave, so you know Renekton is top. So you know that this is a 4v4, essentially, when you see this right here. Without your 80 carry, mind you. So if you look at the scoreboard, you see that the 80 carries are not necessarily that strong. You kind of want this fight because your strong Sejuani is here, your strong Gangplank is here, and their, kind of strong Caitlyn is here. But I think you guys win this fight if it's executed properly. But there are 2 big things to note here that I think are why you guys do not win this fight. The main thing being, you don't focus Raka. Anytime the enemy team has a Raka, you guys should be trying to kill her first, because she pumps health into the rest of her team, making the rest of her team way harder to kill. Number 2, this Swain just got his Rod of Ages and he has Sorcerer's Shoes. Even though you finished your Ludens and you have Tabis and Mercuries, or no magic, you do some damage and you're kind of tanky. With Sorcerer's Shoes and his Roa right now, this guy does considerably more damage than you. This goes back to the fact that your ultimate is focused around getting around the map and making unfair fights, outnumbering people. His ultimate is about big fights like this where everybody's grouped up in a big circle for him to just go all demonic form on. So when you approach this fight, you need to be looking at the fact that Swade is a better team fighter than you, and he built damage first, whereas you don't have Sorcerer's Shoes. So you should know off the bat here that if you guys don't focus Raka, and Swain also starts popping off, that's really bad. So we're going to take that in mind as we watch this one more time. Excuse me, but more slowly. You use your ultimate to try to split them up. Oh my goodness. That's not good. Zhonya also does not have her ultimate because she's already used it. So I think with all of those things in mind, this team fight's bad. Very bad. The only way it's good is if this Raka dies, or one of them actually die. What happens instead? This Swain just ticked level 11. I think that's the biggest reason why he gets this quadra kill. He is the team fighter here, not you. He hit level 11, and he has Sorcerer's Shoes. This really is just his perfect moment, right? Like, look at your team just standing on top of him. When you see that the Zhonya has already used her ultimate and it's on cooldown before this fight started, I don't think you're even looking for this fight at all. Choosing to try to engage this with your ultimate, and then you block your Sej out, and then you fight this, and then you walk into the Swain who just at level 11, it's just all bad. This is not a fight that you really look for and try to engage into a Swain, into a Soraka when you don't kill the Soraka. This is just a bad fight. And because of that, Swain gets a quadra kill. I think you just make the decision to wave clear here and defend tower. If they eventually push up and break it down, so be it. But this is a bad fight overall. Because of all the reasons. Many of the reasons. The other thing to consider is that Shirzai is not here. When she gets here, she's not going to be as impactful as this. She was, what, level 8? And he's level 10 or 11 before that fight started. You got to consider that this is already a bad matchup, especially because Sej ult's down, and Swain is a better team fighter than you, and the next people to show up to each part of the fight is going to even tilt it even more in their favor. So you need to be considering all of those things. Getting your kite on. This is really good stuff. That's a really good bait on your part. I think that's one good sign of your face rush. It probably went off there at least once, but I think that's a limited use case. I think you need to start using Airy at least for the next 5 games. If you still like face rush, go ahead and use it, but I don't recommend it anymore. Use Airy for if you give up on it and get it. I think it's going to benefit you. I think you could even potentially get that double kill on your own. If you had a better build path going into that fight, maybe 20 more farm, 30 more farm, 1 less death, Sorcerer's Shoes with Airy, you just double kill them both. You don't have to run away and be tanky and wait for Zhonya. You just get more fed, do more damage, and get double kills all on your own. Same case with what happened bot lane. You took a kind of a bad path, but a safe path, when you could have gotten at both of them if you played more optimally. Going forward from here, I think you guys kind of just run it down, maybe just start running away. Happens. Your gangplank is ahead. They have a Lee Sin jungle with inspiration, and you have a tank Zhonya. I would definitely say you lucked out here. It's a no-brainer to say you guys have the better team comp here. Even though your Zaya is weak and behind, it doesn't matter. Your Zhonya is unstoppable, and you have a gangplank who's ahead of a Renekton in 20 minutes. That's huge. We've already talked about your build, but we're gonna finish talking about it. I played a Taliyah game myself before doing this review. I looked through pro builds, I looked through op.gg stats for a solid half hour to try to decide what to come up with the best build for you. In general, I think you should be optimizing Ludens over Seraphs, particularly at the level you're playing at. The times you get Seraph are is when your first back nets you a tier. But I think you should be playing more aggressively, typically trying to back for a Blasting Wand or Last Chapter first, and building Ludens. More damage, more kills, more roams, more aggression. Seraphs being dominant in early game, or in high elo matchups where it's basically built 100% of the time over Ludens, is because there's generally less action, more respect and wave clearing that goes on in lanes. But you're going to be able to build Ludens and just stomp people a lot more often. So if you have more successful early games with more farm, you're going to be able to build Sork Shoes more easily. After that, I think your build should be Rylandry's into Rylandry's if they have more tanks or more HP. Or you either go straight into Morellonomicon and then into something like Rabadon's. But if you go into Rylandry, which is kind of like a tanky build, but still a very good build, build more into a maybe Seekers, a Banshee's Veil, and then you're going to need a Void Staff, because Rylandry's and Rylandry's, while they do a lot of damage, they don't give penetration like Morellonomicon does. So all of those items I rattled off, those are mostly the ones that you should be trying to build on Taliyah. Those are her statistically best and highest win rate items. Sork Shoes. Oh, I think you should also be considering Mercury Treads in some games. If you feel like you fall behind, especially against like a mid laner and maybe a jungler in the top who do magic damage. Reason why they're so good on Taliyah, and then you see them a lot, is because having freedom of movement on Taliyah often decides how much damage you get to do. So getting CC'd hurts her more than it does a lot of other mages. She really needs to be able to have free movement throughout a fight. It's her passive and worked ground effectively.
Red team has slain the dragon.
There's one bonus thing I wanted to add to this. I'm going to try to end it before 50 minutes. Because it looks like most of the really big decision making is kind of over here. Big reason why I say this, because we look at the rest of the graph here. The fact that your team has a overwhelmingly dominant team composition makes this game easy. But if you look at the rest of the blue bar, like their team doesn't get anything for the rest of the game. Guys just group up and dominate. So there's really not much for me to tell you in these where you're just destroying them with the Fed team. That can kind of happen to anybody. But in terms of that bonus clip, because we've already touched on the build and everything at this point, right? We talked a little bit about warding. But the main thing I stressed was that all of your deaths were around mid lane. A lot of them were because you didn't have vision and chose to be more aggressive than you should have. Remember that 3 waves of CS is as much as a kill. And when you die, you don't get to CS at all. But we're going to go to that bonus thing I wanted to show you. Remember when we started early game, you ran straight to your tower while your team invaded, and we didn't look at what happened? And we saw that Swain came to lane with no flash. Cool, the invade got good things done for your team. But this is super important, actually. I don't know if you had to use the bathroom or get a drink or something, but AFKing in this spot, 1, bad. Don't do that. If you're going to AFK, at least AFK under tower. 2, you generally shouldn't AFK under tower. You should sit somewhere where you're offering your team vision. In a game like this where you're against Blitz, where you're not against someone like Blitzcrank or Thresh or a really strong invade comp. Actually, they do have a good invade comp. Swain would have to start E, which would be kind of troll. But if he were to land a pool or a snare into a pool, anybody in this bush would be dead. So I think you would respect that. But the fact that your team wants to invade, I think you guys do actually have the better level 1 invade. Because Sejuani is going to proc her passive, which is going to chain stun with Leona stun, and you have your whole Q, which does a bunch of damage level 1. Yeah, it hurts really bad when you combine all 5 rocks. So, but the main thing I want to show you here is that you do not invade with your team. I'm going to show you the cost of that. they actually pick up a very free looking kill here. But what happens here is important. What's important to know is that if you were here, this Swain dies before he flashes over this wall, 100%. But because he flashes over this wall, look at what happens. Your jungler and your Xayah both use their flash. If you help them invade, with a strong invading team comp, you guys have a strong invade, then your AD carry and your jungler will walk out of this engage with their flash, which is a huge team gain for you guys. Instead, you choosing to sit here basically offers your team nothing. If you had AFK or use the bathroom or something, I get it, but one, you should be doing that under tower, and if you're not doing that, I think that kind of sums it up though. Over the course of the video, I think I've mostly hit on everything. I don't look too much at the team fighting here, unfortunately, because I don't really think it's all that relevant. Your team comp is so far ahead that it's kind of hard to tell you how to play it better or differently when you guys mostly just steamroll them for the rest of the game. Blue team doesn't get. That's just kind of murder them all. So I don't really think it's worth looking into most of this. In regarding team fighting with Taliyah, it's, you know, chase them with Qs, try to land seismic shoves on priority targets, and protect your squishier teammates with your E. If you see someone like Renekton or Swain trying to dive, maybe instead of throwing your E at the start of the fight, and you know they have a diving team comp, you wait to throw your E until they start their dive. Because you have that extra damage where you can stop dashes. Someone like Lee Sin queuing over is going to take more damage. Someone like Renekton Eing over is going to take more damage. So typically, Taliyah should be saving her E for peeling in team fights rather than just trying to throw more damage at people. You either throw it out ahead of an entire team to slow their retreat, or you save it to go for your teammates, because it provides a very huge zone of slow. And you guys are pretty much just comboing them to death. There's nothing exciting here. We're gonna keep going though. I'm gonna at least sleep through it. It is worth noting that your build doesn't have any penetration yet, and you have hit late game, essentially. Sometimes late game starts as soon as 20 minutes in some cases. You guys have Baron at 25. That's late game. You are building Void next, but considering your farm at this point in the game could be a lot better. You could have had probably 2 less deaths if we're being ideal. And you could have that Void staff already. You should really be aiming to have at least double pen before 20 minutes or Void staff before 25 minutes, depending on the build you're doing. Or if you're going Rylandry, your Void staff can probably wait a little bit, because Rylies with the Andries and Sorcerer's Shoes, that's still 1 pen item with % health damage, so it's different. Your Void staff could wait a little longer in that case. But we're gonna keep going. See if there's anything that sticks out. Klepto Lee Sin dying first. Can't quite end the game, you decided to back off instead of all in. Fast forward. You guys just walking in the end. Alright. I hope this was helpful. If you still have any questions, text me through the site at League Coaching or message me on my Discord. And take care. Good luck in your next solo queue games on Taliyah.